Hey everyone, my guest today is Rick Lynch. Rick is a retired federal speechwriter and seasoned researcher of American constitutional history whose work challenges the way we understand liberty, rights, and government power. With more than 3 decades spent studying the intentions of the framers, he uncovers the forgotten debates and overlooked economic fears that shaped the Constitution. His book, Money and Liberty, reveals how property and financial security were treated as the true foundation of freedom and why the Bill of Rights was initially cast aside as limiting rather than protective. Drawing on his professional experience in Washington and his lifelong dedication to uncovering historical truth, Rick brings a bold and thought-provoking perspective to one of America's most misunderstood documents. Welcome to the show, Rick. I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I was really interested in some of the topics that you're working on right now. And I guess I kind of just want to jump right in it. What is your current or most recently finished project? And most importantly, I was wondering what welfare meant in 1787 compared to now.
Okay. Is that where you want me to start then?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that in the book, I talk mostly about three things, three very, very, very important things that people get wrong about the Constitution. And sometimes I include a fourth, the entirely misunderstood concept of checks and balances, but we may or may not get to that. And the welfare angle, I generally list third. And what most people don't know, what almost nobody knows, is that the reason we have a U.S. Constitution, the reason the Constitution was written was more than anything else to crush America's first welfare program. It was called the paper money crisis. And I find it hard to believe, and I found it hard to believe when I discovered that the paper money crisis, something no one's ever heard of, is the reason that the Constitution exists. It sounds like an extravagant claim, but it's 100% true. And it's actually very easy to back up. I'll give three examples from the book. So we'll get to how the welfare program worked in a minute, but if you look at the writings of the anti-federalists, after the convention was wrapped up and the framers were trying to get the Constitution ratified, they wrote 85 essays called the Federalist Papers, explaining what's in the Constitution, why, what they're doing, explaining everything about it. Those opposed to the Constitution, and there were many, wrote similar essays, and they were the anti-federalists. And in one of the anti-federalist papers, Langton Smith flat out says that the reason we have a constitutional convention was because of this paper money welfare crisis in the various states. That's the reason it happened. Or as he says, several state legislatures, by making paper money laws, have given just cause of uneasiness to creditors. This abuse of the power of the legislatures, which has been charged upon the democratic part of the community, that means the common man, the majority. We will discuss that shortly. This abuse of power in the legislatures, which has been charged upon the common man, has prepared many honest men for changes in government which otherwise they would not have thought of. That's one example. The biggest example, or the biggest proof of that claim about paper money, is James Madison wrote a very, very famous essay. Of course, everything he wrote is famous, but he wrote a famous essay called Vices of the American Political System just before the convention. And in this essay, he lays out the 12 vices, things that are screwed up in America, that led to the convention. We're having the convention because of these 12 problems. The paper money crisis was only one of the 12, but it came first on the list. And of the 3,100 words in the essay, paper money took up 1,200 of those words.
Okay.
When you get to the convention itself, this is what I really, really find amazing. When you get to the convention itself, amazingly, there's 100,000 ideas that come up. Should we do it this way? Should we do it this way? How about this? What's going to work? Da, 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 da. And in my book, I cite dozens of examples. And over and over and over during the convention, the acid test for almost everything is, well, is that going to lead to paper money? Has it led to paper money in the states? Did it kill a paper money program? I mean, it happens over and over and over. And I'll give you two examples. Every question, from the biggest question you can imagine to the tiniest, comes down to paper money. For example, can the people, the common man, the electorate in the states, even be trusted to pick their own congressional representatives, or will this lead to paper money? That's the question they asked. Tiny little things. What will constitute a quorum? And a quorum is, let's say you've got 50 senators. Mm-hmm. How many of those senators must be present in order to have a vote? 2, 20, 50, what number? Even that tiny little question came down to paper money. I think it was Randolph stood and he said, in Virginia, they required a large quorum, and this led to crushing paper money. So, large quorum. Mm-hmm. Over and over and over again, it came down to paper money. And here is perhaps the most amazing proof that I can think of to show how important paper money was to the framers, this welfare program. And again, we'll discuss the ins and outs of the welfare program in a minute. I'm about to say something that will sound absolutely insane, but Google is your friend. You can Google this and find the truth of it in 5 seconds. Bang. 5 seconds. When you look at the Bill of Rights, most people, virtually nobody knows this. The Bill of Rights, for the first however many years, at least 100, did not apply to the states. So very few people realize this. It applied to the federal government only, period. It did not in any way, shape, or form hamper the states. The last state-supported church in America, separation of church and state, did not disappear until the 1830s. The Supreme Court of the United States did not apply any of the Bill of Rights to the states until the 20th century. Okay? So let me tell you, if you go to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, you will find a very small little list of the things that the states are not allowed to do. We'll get to that in 1 second. But here are the things that the states were allowed to do under the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to quote another author here from the book Novus Ordo Seclorum, which came out in 1985 by Forrest McDonald. Here are the powers that the states have under the U.S. Constitution. Most of the colonies had tax-supported churches. All, except Rhode Island, imposed legal restrictions on various religious sects, and penalties for dissenters, apostates, and blasphemers and idolaters were numerous and severe. The states could establish the mode and manner of religious worship and instruction. They could levy taxes for the support of religion. They could stifle dissent, stifle freedom of the press, of speech, of inquiry. They could regulate food and drink and clothing for the purposes of moral or religious instruction. Wrap your head around that for a minute, okay? Yeah. But what were the states not allowed to do? Again, state-supported church, no problem, but they were prohibited specifically by Article 1, Section 10 from issuing paper money, because it's a welfare program, making anything but gold or silver a legal tender, back to paper money. They could not cancel debts. They could not impair contracts. And they could not impose ex post facto laws, which also come back to paper money. So we'll discuss how all that comes to paper money in 10 seconds, but just wrap your head around that. State-supported church, no problem. Paper money welfare, not a chance. Okay. I can't think of anything that says what the framers thought about paper money and the welfare program more than that. Now, how did the welfare program work? What was it all about? Very, very, very simple stuff. All over the country, in a bunch of the states, Rhode Island especially, Rhode Island was the nightmare that kept the framers awake. And you may not know this, but at the convention, all the states were represented except Rhode Island. Rhode Island refused to send delegates because they knew their welfare program was the very cause of the convention and that thing was going to end. They refused to send delegates, the only state. So anyway, you've got farmers in the various states. And just like today, nothing's changed. A farmer needs a bunch of money at the beginning of the year, hopes for a good crop, hopes for a good price, he borrows. They're borrowing gold and silver coin from creditors, okay? They sign contracts. I lent you $10 in gold coin. You will pay me back $12 in gold coin. Mm-hmm. So the farmers they don't like this. They're like, you know what? I'm going to go to my Representative Congressman Jones, and I'm going to tap him on the shoulder, and I'm going to have him issue paper money. that's nearly worthless. He's going to print this paper money. I'm going to take it and I'm going to give it to this guy in exchange to pay off this debt. And because in every state there are like 100,000 farmers and maybe 20 creditors, well, you see how this is going to work. The rep is like, sure, no problem. Well, it just got worse and worse and worse. The creditors refused to accept the money, so Rhode Island passes another law. You will accept it, period. The creditors flee the state. They leave their homes to avoid accepting the paper money. Think about that for a minute. That's on a little side note. People will always say, well, rich people, you ain't got to worry about them. They will always take care of themselves. You ain't got to worry about them, blah, blah, blah. In the face of unchecked democracy, and one of the delegates at the convention said, the problems we face, the reason we're here, is the excess of democracy. We can trace the evils of our problems to the excess of democracy in the various states. This is, the framers did not like democracy. Almost everyone knows that. So the legislature passes another law. Okay, you fled the state. And by the way, Rhode Island is collapsing at this point. It's turning into a third world hellhole. That's what happens when you chase capital out. Everyone knows that. Rhode Island is becoming an economic basket case. But the legislature passes yet another law. Okay, Farmer Jones, he left the state. You can't give him the money to pay the debt. You walk into a bank, you slap the money on the counter, you go down to the newspaper, you take out an ad saying, hey, I paid off the debt and the debt's canceled. Rhode Island went further still. They just never stopped being slaves to the farmers and giving them every single corrupt thing you could possibly imagine. The first thing they did, they postponed debt collection. They're like, okay, your loan payment's due in January. We'll give you till July. Never mind what the contract says.
Yeah.
And then they actually canceled debts. And this is why in Article 1, Section 10, remember, the states can tell you what you are allowed to eat and drink for the purposes of moral and religious instruction. But they cannot print paper money, impair contracts, make anything but gold or silver a legal tender, and that's the ex post facto law goes back. You cannot write a law to retroactively change an existing contract.
Okay.
I just can't. And by the way, the eating and drinking, I don't know if people know this, that's an old thing. Back in the 1700s and 1800s, they were called sumptuary laws. And if you dressed too nicely or you ate food that was too rich, it was considered sinful and would separate you from God. So sumptuary laws were a real thing in the 1800s. Especially in New England, you will dress plainly and you will eat plain good food, nothing too extravagant or rich that's sinful and decadent. But again, at the convention, the framers didn't write a syllable, utter a word, or lift a finger to change that state of affairs. But they did bring the hammer down on paper money, America's first welfare program, and that is why we have the Constitution.
Yeah. That's
a lot to think about.
Yeah, no, there
I think.
Yeah. That's I had no idea that they at one point they could control what you were eating and wearing.
Yes.
That's insane.
The states were absolutely free. Their internal police powers were unlimited. Just unlimited. And of course, the people in the various states, they were perfectly fine. They were perfectly fine with that. They controlled their state government. And, that's just the way it was back then.
Yeah.
And, Virginia was one of the first to come out and say, you know what, state-supported church, no, that's ridiculous. And they killed that program. But in New England, the Puritans and those types, they were much more hardcore. And that's why their state-supported churches lasted a good deal longer. But yes, under the U.S. Constitution, again, you can Google it, the Bill of Rights did not apply to the states. Did not. And the state's internal police powers were virtually limitless.
Yeah. That's interesting.
To me, it's one of the most fascinating lost facts about the history of to me, it's endlessly fascinating. I would never, the conventional view is we've beaten the British, they're gone, we need a new government. That's why we're doing this. But that's completely, absolutely false. The British final defeat at Yorktown was 1781. The convention came in 1787. We had been operating under the Articles of Confederation for the entirety of the war and those 6 years after the war. Now, the Articles were highly flawed in many ways. But no, it wasn't a case of the British are gone, now we need a new government. We already had a government, and we'd had it for years. The cause of the convention was the paper money crisis. That was the cause. And just generally, the states are just seen as just a little too democratic anyway. And well, I'm sure most everyone knows what the framers thought about democracy. There was the horror of mob rule. So that's what democracy meant to the framers. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So how has this morphed into the way it is today?
well,
If there's even enough time to go through it, like, I guess.
how is what more specifically? How is what become what?
So how have the powers changed?
Well, that is the first. I say there are three and a half things in my book that the point of the book is if you do not know these three things, you will not know anything about the U.S. Constitution. And that brings me back to the first. I blame the biggest villain for the expansion of federal power, if that's what we're talking about. I blame the Bill of Rights entirely, solely, and completely.
So yeah, like why did the framers nearly unanimously reject the Bill of Rights, and
Yeah.
what does that reveal?
So, as I said, paper money was number 3 on the list. Number 1 on my list of the Bill of Rights, constitutional myths. Um, there was no myth more ingrained in the mind of the Americans that the framers or the founders, by the way, the founders, founding fathers and framers, that is two entirely separate and different groups of people. Today, we use them interchangeably, and that is completely wrong, and that is false. We should not use them interchangeably. Those are different groups of people. Some people are indeed on both lists. George Washington is on both lists. Jefferson and Adams are not. Jefferson and Adams are not framers. They were not in Philadelphia writing the framers are the 55 men in Philly writing the Constitution.
Okay.
That list is inelastic, inflexible. You're either there or you are not.
Yeah.
Founding fathers, if you Google that, lists differ. Some have 6, some 7, some 8.
Yeah.
But it's two totally different groups of men. But anyway, the myth goes that the framers or founders gave us the Bill of Rights to secure various liberties. Absolutely, completely, totally false. No truth in it whatsoever. At the convention, the men who actually wrote the Constitution someone proposed a Bill of Rights late in the game, late at the convention. And the men who wrote it said the idea was preposterous, unnecessary, and even dangerous.
Okay.
Of course, the framers are absolutely correct in this. I'll jump ahead. I'm going to say something that sounds insane, but I know I back this up beyond all possible dispute. The Bill of Rights destroyed the U.S. Constitution, absolutely, completely destroyed it, stood it on its head, ended it. It turned the federal government into the all-powerful Leviathan that we live in today. It gave you 10 rights. It took away 10 billion. It gave the federal government 10 billion rights, where before the federal government had 15 or something. And here's how that works. Why is the Bill of Rights preposterous and unnecessary? We will take that first. Well, the framers, one way to secure your rights is to write a list. The problem with writing the list is twofold. You're never going to list all the rights. You just can't.
Yeah.
We have too many rights. You're not going to get them all. Here's what James Wilson said at the convention. Enumerate all the rights of men, exclamation point. I am sure, sir, that no gentleman at the convention would have attempted such a thing.
Yeah.
You have too many rights. Don't write a Bill of Rights because you're going to miss a bunch. That's the first problem. The second problem, the huge problem, okay, we'll stick with unnecessary. Why is it unnecessary? Instead of taking that approach, the framers had a much, much, much better idea. Article 1, Section 8, they're going to write a tiny little list too. Only on the framers' tiny little list, it's not your rights. Okay, the framers have a tiny little list, and that is the powers/rights of the federal government. Article 1, Section 8, the enumeration. The federal government is allowed to have an army and a navy, engage in international diplomacy, have a post office, build post roads, collect tariffs. It's about 25 some powers.
Yeah.
A boring little list of necessary powers. Nothing on that list is very exciting. If you do not see something on that list, the federal government does not have that power. Article 1, Section 8, you will find nothing on that list about taking your guns, telling you who to worship, suppressing free speech, suppressing a newspaper, promoting a religion. Nothing on there. Every single thing in the Bill of Rights, every single thing was already protected by the enumeration, was already off limits to federal power. everything. Why is the Bill of Rights unnecessary? You're afraid the feds are going to take your guns? Go look at Article 1, Section 8.
Yeah.
Doesn't mention you don't see the power to take your guns. You don't. You don't see the power to suppress the free speech or da. And I remember the states could do all that crazy stuff, but the feds could not. I think it's pretty clear why the men who wrote the Constitution said the Bill of Rights is unnecessary.
Yeah.
But why is it dangerous? We touched on it. First of all, you can't write a big enough list to cover all your rights. And secondly, and here's the world we live in today, I am sure you will agree, no one would disagree with that. If you list certain rights, 200, 2,000, you create the impression, you could finish the sentence, I'm sure, you create the impression that those are all of the rights. And that's what the Bill of Rights did.
Yeah.
Every living, breathing soul on planet Earth, let's take the Department of Education. Is its creation legal and constitutional? Every living, breathing soul on this planet would go to the Bill of Rights and say, let's see. Well, the government can't take your guns. So it doesn't say anything about the Department of Education. Right. The government won't suppress your free speech. Every single thing that the government wants to do today, people go to the Bill of Rights. They look for it at prohibition. They don't find it. The government does it. Yeah. You've heard of Doge and some of the crazy, insane stuff that they have found. $8 million to send your money to Sri Lanka to teach journalists how not to be offensive. If you look at the Bill of Rights, that is absolutely, completely, totally, 100% constitutional, or at least the way the Bill of Rights is misunderstood. I have a quote in there from Franklin Pierce, 14th President of the United States, just to give you. So you see, the Bill of Rights and the enumeration, why I say the Bill of Rights destroyed the Constitution? Before the Bill of Rights, you had 10 billion rights. The government had 10. Yeah. It's the exact opposite. The Bill of Rights and the enumeration, think about it. Clearly, they are two opposite approaches. They are perfectly opposite each other. If you're a Bill of Rights guy, or as I like to say, the Bill of Very Few Rights, what happens? Franklin Pierce, I have a quotation from Franklin Pierce, when he vetoed welfare spending for drought-stricken farmers. Okay? He said, notice how he goes to the enumeration and gets it right. He says, I cannot place my finger on that part of the Constitution that allows me to spend taxpayer money on purposes of benevolence, or however he said it. See, he went to the enumeration. You're not going to find permission for the federal government to take your money to give to drought-stricken farmers in the enumeration. If you go to the Bill of Rights, well, let's see, freedom of speech, freedom of press, doesn't say you can't do it, so you can do it. To me, it's the most profound it is the most profound observation on the U.S. Constitution that can ever exist. The Bill of Rights is entirely, completely, absolutely antithetical to the Constitution and simply destroyed it. Yeah. Period. The federal government has all the powers on earth because people believe in the Bill of Rights. The men who wrote the Bill of Rights said, no, bad idea. And they named those reasons. And lo, it looks like they were correct. If there's time and if you want, because there's another fascinating political story. How did the Bill of Rights end up being written if the men who wrote the Constitution thought it was a very bad idea?
Right. Yeah, I am curious about that. So it seems like the Bill of Rights just created loopholes for the government to do what it wants.
That's one way to put it. Or again, it created the impression, you want to find your rights? Look at the Bill of Rights. There they are. Yeah. That's it. That's what you get. The government gets everything else. And again, before the Bill of Rights, you had 1 billion rights. Government had 10. I'm making these numbers up. But after the Bill of Rights, you've got 10. Government's got 1 billion. Yeah. I don't know if there are a few public intellectuals today that I'm reading their words and they scared the hell out of me because I'm the only person in the world where you're going to hear this. Okay. And they scared me because they almost got it. But both of them went on at length about why the Bill of Rights is unnecessary. They got that part right. And they had all their proper quotations. They got that part right. But you know what both these people did? They both went on to say, thank God for the Bill of Rights, though, anyway, because, that whole enumeration thing, that enumeration doctrine has been gutted and ignored, et cetera, et cetera. So thank God for the Bill of Rights, because now at least we have these rights. And if not for the Bill of Rights, we wouldn't have any. And I'm like, I get such a headache. I'm like, wait a minute. Why is the enumeration gutted and forgotten and thrown in the trash? Because of the Bill of Rights. You you so and so.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get the second part right. Yes, the enumeration is worthless garbage. It was thrown in the trash at least 100 years ago,
Hmm.
and that's because of the Bill of Rights,
Yeah.
creating this confusion.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing. Yes, the enumeration no longer exists. Thank you, Bill of Rights. That's why the
Yeah.
enumeration is garbage, trash, and forgotten. When G. Gordon Liddy, I don't know if you know who he is, a big radio guy, conservative radio guy.
Okay.
When he was alive and he was on the radio, he talked about the enumeration constantly. He understood it fully, but he
Hmm.
also worshipped at the altar of the Bill of Rights. Never did catch on to the contradiction. Never saw it. Never
Oh.
saw the contradiction.
Yeah.
Um, and that's because, the Bill of Rights is maybe perhaps, I mean, I literally rank it up there with the Bible in America. It is a sacred totem. It is
Right.
sacred. And it is a sacred totem. And um, it takes some thought. You have to have an open mind. You have to realize what a terrible thing it is. And it is a terrible thing.
Yeah. All right. So what is that? What is it? The other story that you had?
About you mean the other thing on my list, or how the Bill of Rights came to be?
How did the Bill of Rights come to be?
Okay, very good, fascinating political tale, very fascinating. It's really quite interesting. James Madison, there's a clue here. James Madison is known as the father of the Bill of Rights. He's also known as the father of the U.S. Constitution. See, there's a clue there. James Madison was one of the most vociferous opponents to the Bill of Rights. Again, he wrote the Constitution. He knew it was a bad idea, and he didn't want to come along and in the very first Congress, 3.5 years later, alter the Constitution that he had just finished writing. However, why is James Madison a congressman in the first Congress and not a senator? That's because in Virginia, who chooses senators under the original Constitution? State legislatures.
Uh-huh.
In Virginia, the anti-federalists were in charge. Patrick Henry especially. They had all the power. The anti-federalists don't like the U.S. Constitution at all. They don't like it. And therefore, Patrick Henry is not going to give James Madison a Senate seat. Simple stuff. So James Madison, in order to win his House seat, promises the people, I will write you a Bill of Rights. I will champion a Bill of Rights, okay? So he did it just to get that seat. And here's where it gets really interesting. I read a book called From Parchment to Power, and in the preface of that book, the man makes the point, as I've sort of made already. He says, Madison wrote the Bill of Rights very carefully to alter not one single word. I'm going to say that again. To alter not one single word of the U.S. Constitution. And again, it didn't. The Bill of Rights is worthless crap. The federal government already could not take your guns, tell you who to worship, have a state. The Bill of Rights changed nothing. And as the man said, and that was precisely Madison's intent. Madison, this is a beautiful political tale. He's like, okay, you want a Bill of Rights? I'll give you a Bill of Rights. And then he cleverly writes a Bill of Rights that does absolutely nothing. As one critic called it, it was meant to trick people, to fool people. You want a Bill of Rights? Here it is. One critic called the Bill of Rights a sop to the unenlightened because, and it worked. It fooled the people. Patrick Henry wasn't fooled. The anti-federalist leadership, they weren't fooled in the least. They're way too smart. But it got him his House seat. And there is some debate whether or not the people really wanted a Bill of Rights at all. Or was it just people like Patrick Henry and even Patrick Henry, this is getting in the weeds, he didn't want a Bill of Rights. He simply wanted the federal government, he wanted a brand new convention to start from scratch. He thought the federal government was too powerful as it is. But he could see it was popular. So politicians do that to this very day. Here comes a law. I like this law. I think it's a good law. I just want to tinker with it a little bit, when in reality they hate the law. But yes, James Madison wrote the Bill of Rights to trick people and to fool people. And again, it changed nothing. It changed absolutely nothing, except, of course, the way it's misunderstood changed everything. And there's the great irony there. Patrick Henry, who feared federal power more than anyone, the anti-federalist, he pushed for this Bill of Rights, and it eventually turned the federal government into the monster that he feared. It's really quite ironic. But, and that's the reason, by the way, that's the reason why Patrick Henry, the man who wanted the Bill of Rights more than anybody else, refused absolutely to support the Bill of Rights once he saw that it was a joke. He refused to
Okay.
support it. That should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah.
It changed nothing. So,
Yeah.
fascinating political tale.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't hear anything about this ever.
No. Oh, absolutely
anywhere.
not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think a single new word's been written about the Constitution in God knows how long. 50 years at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's
You can scan the new books about the U.S. Constitution. I think a couple come out every year. And
Yeah.
believe me, I've been reading them for 20 years, terrified that somebody was going to steal my thunder. Hasn't happened yet. It's just the same old, same old, same old.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you about my sponsors real quick. Sometimes I need a boost before my bike ride, but pounding an energy drink or coffee beforehand just isn't an option. What I love about Quantum Energy Squares is that they're made with 10 grams of plant protein and 100 milligrams of natural caffeine, equal to an 8-ounce cup of coffee. I get the boost I need without having to drink fluids that weigh me down or cause a pit stop during my ride. They have over 2,500 reviews with customers raving about their delicious flavors, like caramel almond sea salt and my favorite, dark chocolate pink Himalayan salt. My discount code gives you 25% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit quantumsquares.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brand's pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. Are you looking for a gift for a music lover, or maybe some apparel to show off your quirky side? Old Glory has you covered. With over 300,000 officially licensed items covering music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture, you're guaranteed to find the perfect item. They even have seasonal gear. My husband enjoys the Beatles and Led Zeppelin apparel, and I love the Billy Idol apparel. I even found items for my fellow plant enthusiasts. This family-owned superstore is known for their quality and customer service, offers free standard shipping on all orders, and orders are shipped the same day you purchase. My discount code gives you 15% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit oldglory.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. Yeah. Do you have your book next to you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
can
indeed.
you show it up? Or, show it off for the audience.
Available everywhere, as they say. Money and Liberty, How the Framers' Obsession with Protecting Your Money Shaped the Constitution. Now, we talked about the money. I always say there are 4 things in the book. Okay. Bill of Rights is number 1. Mm-hmm. Money is number 2. Paper money is 3. And the checks and balances is 4. So I guess now it's time for money.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember, I got started on this journey 30 years ago.
Okay.
Because of the money. I was in college, and we were reading this book. It was about 30 years ago. We were reading this book, The People Shall Judge.
Okay.
Which is nothing but original letters, essays, et cetera, et cetera. There's no author to this book. There are hundreds of authors. John Locke, Hume, Madison, Jefferson. That's all it is. It's quotations from those who shaped American political thought. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading the words of the founders and the framers, again, 2 different groups, and endlessly and obsessively, all they talk about is property. And to my uneducated mind, that meant landed estates. And I get it. Back in the day, your land was your sacred this and that, and it tied you to your ancestors, blah, blah. Okay. And I was like, okay, that's all outdated stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all outdated. But the professor, I will never forget this. It's my road to Damascus moment, changed my life. The professor held up his finger and he said, remember, money is property. And suddenly I'm like, wow. So then I start looking at these quotes and I find let me give you some juicy quotations. The framers, first of all, one author noted that the framers almost always speak of property / money in starkly religious tones.
Okay.
That's very true. Another author said the framers had a nearly religious respect for property. Strike the word nearly, okay? There's nothing nearly religious about it. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The framers themselves, one of my favorite is John Adams. The moment the idea is introduced into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, anarchy and tyranny commence. At the convention, speaking of paper money, one of the delegates said, granting the federal government this power would be as alarming as the mark of the beast in Revelation. Starkly religious tones again. Another great John Adams quotation says that property during the French Revolution, because they're going mega Democrat there, it's a democracy. It's becoming a pure democracy. And John Adams said, they will soon find that property is as the lamb committed to the world. The lamb committed to the world is straight from the Bible. In the Bible, the lamb committed to the world, the lamb is Jesus. In John Adams, the lamb is money. The framers are absolutely obsessed with property, and it comes from Locke, John Locke, 1600s Scottish philosopher. And they wrote about money in the Federalist Papers more than 17 times as often as they wrote about your rights, the big three rights of the First Amendment. More than 17 times as often, this one single right.
Yeah.
When I went down this path, it quickly became apparent to me, very quickly, again, to the modern American mind, we've grown up being taught that those dirty, filthy, sweat-stained dollar bills in our pocket, it's grubby, it's mere commerce, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we've been taught, okay? But I think that if you think about it for just a little bit, you'll see that there's absolutely nothing whatsoever radical, crazy, or insane about money being a sacred gift from the Creator. By the way, we'll get to taxation in a moment, which is entirely legitimate. People hear money is sacred and they go off the rails, but we'll get to that. The modern American credo that we all live by, and it's one thing that's true about America, I believe in it, you've got the right in this country to be 100 million revolting, disgusting, sickening, terrible, awful things, as long as you're not hurting other people. There's no behavior so bizarre, so abhorrent, so strange that it's, against the rules, okay?
Yeah.
You are free to do what you want as long as you're not harming others. How is it that if Joe over here says that all he wants to do all day is burn copies of the Bible, urinate on the flag, spit on your culture and your country and this and that, and worship a tree stump, he can do that, and we say, that is his right. He is not harming me. I stand over here and say, I just don't want my money going to Sri Lanka. Yeah. How many people believe that is a sacred right? We have spent our entire lives ridiculing government expenses like that. Outrageous, ridiculous, insane, stupid, wasteful, nonsensical. When was the last time someone called in what the framers would have called it, a violation of your God-given sacred and natural rights? When was the last time anyone ever said that? Your money, if you want to get deep and philosophical about this, and I don't even think it's necessary, but John Locke said, and he made some good points, your property, your money, is created by your mind, your body, your soul, and your hands. This is yours. It was created by your mind and your soul. I think that people see this clearly enough. If you picture somebody going off grid with an axe in his hand and building a cabin and raising chickens and growing corn, we all see, who does that corn belong to? What human being could ever have a right to that corn but that man? We all see that very, very clearly. If, however, I take my God-given talents to, IBM, and I analyze spreadsheets for 40 hours a week, people seem to think that, no, again, government sending your money to Sri Lanka is wasteful, but, that's just, that's just the price of doing business. And government's necessary. So to taxation, because a lot of people, the first thing they say is, oh, so we don't have to pay taxes? No. See, your sacred right to your money is absolutely identical to your sacred right to free speech. When you enter into civil society, every single one of your rights is compromised. I'll give you some examples. You have the right to free speech, yes, but you do not have the right in civil society. When civil society, you left the state of nature and you want the blessings of government. Because in the state of nature, I'm sure you've heard, life is nasty, brutish, and short, said David Hume. Okay? You enter in civil society, your rights are compromised. You have the right to free speech, say the government is terrible. You do not have the right to show up at 4 a.m. in front of the old folks' home with a sound truck and a bullhorn and start screaming that the government's terrible. Your rights are compromised. I have the right to self-defense. I do not get to take my fully loaded machine gun and lay it on the defendant's table in front of me as they read the verdict in my murder trial.
Right.
Okay? Your right to self-defense is all of your rights are compromised. Only minimally and when necessary, however. Okay? In the examples I just gave you. Why is it that when we enter into civil society, people believe that their rights to their property are simply 100% totally, absolutely up for grabs? Any congressman or senator anywhere on earth can claim as much of your money as they want for any reason whatsoever at any time whatsoever, period. They can take every single penny that you have earned and ever will earn and do whatever they want with it. That is the way we view property today. No rights attached to property whatsoever. None. And again, we've all seen the list. I could go on for days. Sending my money that I earned to Sri Lanka to give to a journalist for any reason whatsoever, that is a violation of my sacred natural rights, period. And one last thing about property. I'm always amazed. The Kelo decision, it went to the Supreme Court about 10 years ago. Every 10 years or so, this just proves beyond any doubt how misunderstood property rights are. The Kelo decision involved taking private land, I think it was in New Jersey, for a casino, whatever. Someone was going to take private land. The government took it to give to another person for a casino, okay?
Yeah.
There were 150 trillion essays written about the Kelo decision because as a violation of property rights. It was the first time in my entire life I'd heard a discussion of property rights. But you notice, only when I used to think property meant land. That's what people still think today. Someone took land in New Jersey and suddenly we're talking about the violation of property rights, which it is.
Yeah.
But all day, every single day, the federal government seizes your cash in staggering sums that are simply incomprehensible to the human mind, seizes your private property and gives it to somebody else for any reason whatsoever. When was the last time you saw a news article about the violation of your property rights because your money went to Sri Lanka? I'll tell you when. Never.
Never. Yeah.
People don't understand property rights. Read my book, please, and you will understand property rights.
So as you're describing this, it almost is inspiring me to maybe spend a little less of my money if I'm thinking of it as property. And so, because I feel like the attitude towards money, it is, as you've described, like, oh, just almost like throw it away, because the government's going to take however much they want anyways. It's out of our control. That's
I make a point in the book about if this whole connection to property, the strange bedfellows. If you think about the anti-vaxxers and the abortion people, my body, my right, da 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 da. It's the same. It's the exact same with money. If you think about it, if you look at Locke's philosophy, and if you think about it, when they take your money, they are taking a part of you. They are taking a part of you. Time is precious, and there ain't much of it. And every single thing that you earn, everything you create came from your time, again, and your body and your soul and your labor. When they take your money, they are taking a part of you. And again, the framers speak that way. Locke spoke that way. I don't see why people don't see it. It's just, why do you not see that? You woke up and you went to work and you labored and you created something.
Yeah.
And now they're going to take that something and give it to a journalist in Sri Lanka. How in the name of God is that permissible?
Right.
And the book, another one I cite in the book, I always cite it because it's funny. You may not remember this. 20 years ago, when Hillary was a senator, Chuck Schumer and Hillary wanted to take your money for a Woodstock concert. They wanted people in California to go to work and to labor so that Hillary could take that person's money and give it to a friend of hers so she could create a museum in New York State. How in the name of God is that even legal? Why would anybody ever put up with that? I understand. I think we can all see they take your money and they establish a post office. I think we can all see, fine, okay.
Yeah.
A Woodstock, they take my labor and they turn it into a Woodstock museum in a state that I have never once stepped. Okay, I've been to New York, but if they'd have put it in Montana, I could say a state that I have never once stepped foot in.
Yeah.
I think people need to start thinking that way. How in the name of God can government tell me it is illegal to say I hate the government? That would be outrageous. However, they can seize my labor, my body, my soul, and my mind, and give it to anyone for anything. Outrageous.
So I remember in high school they had us take, I can't remember what class it was. We took a quiz to see like, oh, are you Democrat or Republican? And I remember specifically this question that said, are you okay if the government takes just a small portion of your income to give it to the needy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Of course, I'm saying, sure, I have a heart, that's not what they're doing, though. Like, they're taking a large portion of our income and doing whatever the hell they want to with it. And it's very frivolously spent. The people who are actually in need aren't... Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. The people in need aren't getting their help. And with USAID and all the funds being sent to other countries, I've seen videos from people in Africa saying it doesn't help us when you send this money to us to eat. The people who need it aren't getting it. It's only going to the people who already have what they need.
If you want an inefficient way to help the needy, get government involved. If you want a breathtakingly inefficient way to help the needy, get the federal government involved.
Yeah.
And, if you want to talk about helping the needy, again, under the U.S. Constitution, it's liberals can find much to like in the U.S. Constitution. Under the U.S. Constitution, remember, the state of Massachusetts is free to seize your money for welfare programs, not paper money welfare. I always have to make that. The U.S. Constitution outlaws the paper money welfare program. It really does not outlaw welfare in general. Okay. It does not. You can read Article 1, Section 10. States are forbidden to do. Mm-hmm. The U.S. Constitution definitely outlaws federal welfare. It's absolutely unconstitutional. There's absolutely no place. Again, Franklin Pierce had it correct. I cannot undertake. James Madison said he was actually stole that from James Madison. James Madison, and he would know, wrote almost the exact same words 100 years earlier. He wrote, "I cannot undertake to place my finger on that part of the Constitution that allows me to da da da," and it was some kind of welfare spending. If you really, really want to help the needy, this is where everybody wants the Constitution to be absolutely perfect in their own minds. A lot of people are upset, very distressed at the amount of power left in the states. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have to point out, though, that the framers really had no choice there. Yeah. The states were never, ever, ever going to sign on to a U.S. Constitution. It created a strong central government in the first place. They were never going to sign on to one that said, the federal government can also come into your state and tell you, about this law, that law, that law. The federal government, as Madison said, would never touch your lives. You wouldn't know it existed except in times of war, basically. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it was the states had the power, and a lot of people don't like that, but that's just the way it is. Yeah. There are things I don't like about that, but I don't pretend that they're not true just because I don't like them.
Right.
I just don't. I mean, the book talks about slavery. Justice, oh my God, should I go down this rabbit hole? Justice Robert Bork, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he, probably the best-selling book ever written about the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to have to guess. The Tempting of America. Okay. And even Robert Bork, it may be the most incredible chapter in my book, even Robert Bork has absolutely no understanding of the U.S. Constitution. He says, and I quote him 5 different times, he says, The federal government is limited by the enumeration, only the powers in it. And then he turns around, the exact same author in the exact same book, and says 5 different times, literally, you have only those rights that the Constitution actually specifies in the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Even Justice Bork falls into the trap, and he talks about how the Dred Scott case is completely wrong because you can't have. Judge Taney said you can't have a federal law against slavery, and Bork says, well, what is he talking about? Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you can own slaves. This is the man who just wrote. He just wrote the federal government is limited by the enumeration. Look at the enumeration and point to that part that says the federal government can regulate slavery. It does not exist.
Right.
Again, I wish it did, but how is it that, I dropped out of school after the 6th grade. How is it that I've spent my entire adult life knowing that the southern states were never, ever going to sign on to the federal government that could regulate slavery? They were never going to do that. I know that. How does Bork not know that?
Yeah.
I wish the federal government had the power to abolish slavery. It did not. It did not, which is why we have a civil war and then amendments to allow the federal government to do that. But yeah, there are parts about the Constitution that no one likes. And again, I recognize those parts and I deal with it. I don't pretend that just because I don't like it, that they don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what's the third part of your book?
Oh no, the fourth.
Or fourth? Okay.
So
yeah, sorry.
The Bill of Rights is a disaster. The framers thought that money was the most important of all your sacred natural rights. The Constitution exists only to crush the welfare program. And 4, talking about the purpose of how checks and balances work. Okay?
Okay.
I think the universal belief is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think the universal belief is checks and balances, very simple. There's a rogue senator, and he's out to screw the people. So the House is going to check him, or the president, or the Supreme Court. Or maybe there's a rogue president who's out to screw the people, and he will be checked by the Senate or the House. That's how it works.
Yeah.
We want the government checked from doing bad things, from trying to screw the people. And darn it, I don't have the quotations in front of me, but I have 2 fabulous quotations from Jefferson. He was not a framer, but still knows of what he speaks.
Yeah.
Jefferson and Madison.
Okay.
No. Completely and totally misunderstood. Checks and balances are not designed to keep the government from screwing the people. You see, under our Constitution, the people, the common man, the majority, they hold the power. We don't have to worry about people screwing them. What we have to worry about, let's put it this way. Whoever is in power in any political system, the framers knew and wrote about, whoever is in power will screw the powerless. Be that the king, the oligarch, the monarch, the few, the many, Under a democratic representative type government such as ours, the people have the power. The common man, the majority, and we saw that with the paper money crisis. The common man had the power. And what did he do? Like everyone else, the framers did not look down their nose at the common man, because when they looked at the common man, they saw someone who would use government to steal for them. When they look at aristocrats, they see somebody who would use government to steal from them.
Yeah.
We are all of the same clay, said John Adams. Under our system, the people hold the power. You don't have to worry about a congressman trying to screw the people. So checks and balances are designed entirely and completely not to keep the government from screwing the people, but to keep legislators from giving the people what they want, from doing the people's bidding.
Yeah.
Because what the people so often want is what everybody wants: somebody else's money. Okay?
Yeah.
In our system, in our government, the people, despite the fears that the framers had about the common man and democracy and mass majority rule and all that, despite those fears, the people, despite the fact that there was a Senate that the people did not elect, the president was not elected by the people, the common man under our original U.S. Constitution holds the lion's share of political power. He is still the big dog in the arena. despite, again, a president he doesn't elect, a Senate he doesn't elect, okay? He elects the entire House every 2 years. Every single one of those people is up for debate. Mm-hmm. Every single check and balance, and Jefferson and Madison are in the book talking about this, the checks and balances written into the system are written and designed to check the common man, to check the people themselves, because the people hold the political power. People get very upset about this. How dare you be unenlightened and check? Well, if you're going to put anybody in power, anybody, any faction, any group, you better handcuff them. You better check and balance them. The checks and balances are not designed to stop rogue legislatures. They are designed, in our case, to stop the people. Because the people, James Madison says this in Federalist 10, the people so often want things like, quote, like what? Paper money.
Yeah.
And by the way, if I could say one more thing.
Yeah.
I think that my entire book, 90% of my book, can be summed up in Federalist 10 by James Madison. Okay. Again, I beg you to go to your Google machine. You will see that Federalist 10 is considered the best, most popular, and most famous of all the 85 essays.
Okay.
Given that that's the case, I am stunned, absolutely stunned, that my book is necessary, because James Madison says in Federalist 10, he says, why do we have government at all? Because without government, factions are constantly at each other's throats, special interest groups. And factions will fight about anything. But what is it they fight about most often? I'll give you one guess. What is it that most often leads to faction and strife and civil conflict?
Money.
The unequal distribution of property. Yeah. This is what causes faction. The unequal distribution of property is why we have government. It causes faction. You need government to control faction. He says it right there. The most enduring in whatever cause. Yeah. In Federalist 10, he talks about the government that they designed, the convention, and how wonderfully it checks faction, how it does a great job of checking faction. No one is too powerful. No one can ride roughshod over anybody else. And he cites 4 examples. In Federalist 10, he cites 4 different examples of the kind of faction, the kind of strife that will not happen under our system. Every single one of the factions, every single one of these examples was entirely about money. All 4 of them were about money, 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 and money. And then he also cites 3 different things that are not going to happen under the U.S. Constitution. And he cites 3 welfare programs. Yep. So he talks about 7 things that his Constitution is going to fix. All 7 were 100% about money. Federalist 10, if you're doubting anything I'm saying, that one single essay is right. The most famous essay of all. And yet, he cites, again, domestic manufacturers versus importers, farmers versus credit. He cites 4 different factions. It's money, 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 and money. And then he says, my Constitution will prevent paper money. It will stop levelers. These are people who want to level society, financially speaking. Everybody has all the same thing. And a cancellation of debt. He cites 4 money conflicts and then 3 welfare programs that his Constitution will stop. Right there in Federalist 10. He doesn't talk about the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, the freedom of religion, and none of that. Yeah. And back to vices of the American political system, where he lays out the 12 vices, and paper money is 1/3 of the essay. Yeah, it's another thing. Freedom of the speech, freedom of press, guns, worship. Not a syllable, not one word in the entire 3,100-word essay. It's all about money.
All about money. Wow. I will put a link to the Federalist 10 in the episode show notes so that people can see that. And then, of course, I'll put a link to your book as well.
Oh, yes, please do.
Is there any main point you'd like to drive home to the audience, or any specific message you'd like them to get in regards to what's in your book?
Well, I think, that's just it. I think that I do believe it's not possible to understand the Constitution if you don't know why the framers rejected a Bill of Rights. Then you will never understand the enumeration. They rejected the Bill of Rights. You need to understand why they did that. And stop thinking that they had anything to do with the Bill of Rights. You need to know what they thought about money. Again, I see the connection very clearly. How if you're a free human being. You have a right to worship a tree stump, and you
Uh-huh.
have a right to keep your money. I see the connection. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't, thanks to the Bill of Rights, because it only talks about speech, all these highfalutin things.
Yeah.
And it would help to know that the U.S. Constitution came into existence because of a welfare program.
Yeah.
I think if you understand these things, and if you understand how checks and balances work, I think you can have a firm grasp of the Constitution. If you don't know these things, you don't know anything.
Yeah. All right. So we can get your book anywhere, right?
Anywhere, Amazon,
Anywhere.
Kindle, okay. all that.
I'll find it and I'll get a link.
Places I never even heard of. There are so many anymore.
That's awesome.
And I love the cover they designed for me, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really nice. Oh, and it's only, and believe me, I worked very hard. It's only 35,000 words.
Nice.
I have never.
Yeah.
I think there's one book in my entire life I've read over 700 pages that I thought was worth it. The smaller the book, the better.
Yes, I have heard that from other authors, that it's better to kind of keep it, shorter, so that people keep with it.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Sounds good. Well, I will. I want to thank you for coming on, and I'm sorry it was a little rushed. Anytime you want to come back, let me know, and I would love to continue the conversation.
Oh, I will. And no, I didn't feel rushed at all. And thank you.
Good.
And anybody who gives me a voice or a platform, I'm eternally grateful to.
Well, I will keep in touch. So.
And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You have a great day.